Swear to God, this is a productive use of time. Holy cow. Hi YouTube, Herpter up here, and welcome to Warframe Science. Today's topic is Nova. You like crowd control? You like explosions?
You like jazz?
You like teleporting around the map like you're some kind of goddamn Aperture Science prototype? You like that booty? You like getting swatted around like you're some sort of fruit fly? Ow! Well then, let me tell you about the actual science behind Warframe Nova. So, a nova is this astronomical event where a white dwarf star orbiting a larger binary companion starts to create hydrogen off the surface of the larger star, resulting in runaway hydrogen fusion reactions. Or, alternatively, Nova is just this PBS educational show. Neither of which has anything to do with Nova the Warframe, because her abilities all involve antimatter. Now, what is antimatter? Antimatter, according to quantum physics, is simply one of the rarest and most volatile materials in existence. Now, a particle of antimatter is similar to a regular particle of matter, except that it has the opposite electrical charge. Now, for example, an electron has a negative charge, whereas an anti-electron, or a positron, has a positive charge. Oh, and also, if those two particles ever meet, they explode. In fact, that's one of the clearest demonstrations of E equals mc squared you'll ever see. This much mass makes that much kaboom. Now, the only way we currently know of to generate antimatter is with radioactive decay, and we don't really have a good way to contain more than 100 or so antimatter particles at a time. But let's assume, just for the sake of assumption, that Nova can somehow make and contain a whole bunch of antimatter within her body. So then her passive logically should be that when she dies, she releases all of that antimatter in a big old radioactive explosion, right? I am highly disappointed. So this is her actual passive. Actually did something. I'm shocked. Nova's first ability is called Null Star, and it's pretty basic. Nova just sweats out some droplets of antimatter, and then she can rub the sweat onto enemies, and the sweat blows up when it hits them, and it hurts them. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh sweat me, baby. Oh, I like it when you do that. Oh. Now, in principle, should the antimatter sweat droplets explode when they hit the air? Yeah, but we're gonna assume that each droplet is big enough that it doesn't degrade instantly, and Nova has time to hit it with enemies. How big? Hard to tell, so it's kind of hard to do math to see how big those explosions are. And there's not a lot else to talk about.
This is Nova. Wildly unpredictable.
Yep, wildly unpredictable. Yep. Bet you didn't predict I was gonna use Molecular Prime. Oh, I bet you didn't predict I was gonna use it again. Haha. Alright, jokes aside, Molecular Prime is definitely the most crucial part of Nova's kit, and it's the part that most people build around. There are two widely differing builds for Nova. One based around power strength, which is designed to generate crowd control, and then another build based around anti-power strength, that is designed to generate anti-crowd control. Kinda like matter and antimatter, huh? So I would assume that the way Nova's Molecular Prime works is as follows. Nova lets out this giant antimatter fart, and as it expands throughout the room, enemies breathe it in, and they become horribly incapacitated by the fart. The antimatter gets into their lungs, and it slows them down, and it causes them to take more damage, yada yada. And when the enemies are killed, all the antimatter they breathed in explodes, and causes them to deal a bunch of blast damage in an area of effect. Simple. Logical. And of course, there's not really any good way to tell exactly how much antimatter is in any one antimatter fart, so we can't really do math here. Oh hey look, it's Nova's ability Antimatter Drop, the ability where she sneezes out a giant antimatter loogie the size of a basketball. And then shoots it so that her antimatter snot blows up and kills all the enemies in a giant area. Cool. Now you might be asking, Why am I assigning disgusting bodily functions to all of Nova's abilities? Well, the answer to that is simple. She has to get that giant ball of antimatter somewhere from inside her body, so if that's not snot, I don't want to know what that is. Now hang on though, antimatter drop does look to be about exactly the size of a basketball, and if we assume that's all antimatter, then we can actually do real math with it. So let's see, your average basketball is supposed to be about 22 ounces, which is roughly half a kilogram, so we plug half a kilogram into E equals mc squared, and we get... Ow. We get an explosion about the size of a moderately large thermonuclear warhead. So it should look like this. So what's more impressive than thermonuclear snot warheads? I'll tell ya. Wormholes. And we could be having a whole discussion about quantum entanglement and teleportation, but I guess I'm gonna have to say that for later because something is telling me that this ability creates an honest-to-God wormhole. Hi.
Inhuman reactions!
Shit. Unfortunately, I'm not the biggest expert on Einstein's field equations of general relativity, so instead I'm going to show you guys some clips from a Game Theorists episode about Portal. Link in the description. Basically, the problem with wormholes is that they require a lot of negative gravity to keep them open, which needs negative mass, and that's not the same thing as antimatter.
You need negative mass to balance out the implosive pressure. That's right, you heard me. Negative mass. Not to be confused with negative matter, which has a positive mass. No, we're talking about a whole new stratum of weird. Wormholes require a metric ton of negative mass to stay open. How much is a metric ton? Well, it varies from wormhole to wormhole, but with one the size of our portal that stays open for as long as it does, we can use the Morris-Thorne metric to calculate roughly how much negative mass this pretty modest wormhole would require. I mean, it's about the size of a door, and at most only stretches about a football field's distance away. So how much negative mass would this thing need? Only 70 sextillion kilograms. Just so you know, that's enough negative mass to cancel out the entire existence of the moon in an instant. That's how freaking unstable these things are.
Basically, the entire concept of creating lots of negative mass particles is super hand-wavy, and would involve the creation and destruction of lots of quantum pairs, similar to Hawking radiation. It's certainly something that we can't do on command with today's technology. In addition, apparently these things will also create more thermonuclear explosions.
A ton of that mass at the very edges of the portal is being folded together with less space between them than a sheet of paper. Those walls and everything in between them are being smushed together. Smashing atoms this close together literally smashes atoms together, creating fusion reactions which creates heat and radiation and unstoppable damage to the matter around you. Even if you could find a way to avoid the horrific negative mass implications of these portals, you're doomed to either A, get your face melted off immediately by a hydrogen bomb level explosion caused by the instantaneous collapse of local space-time, or die a horrific death from radiation.
Yeah, you get the idea. Basically, it's super unlikely that Nova would be able to generate those wormholes so nonchalantly. So for this episode, Wormhole gets the title of Most Unlikely Ability in Nova's Kit, according to science. If you like what you saw here, please feel free to like or subscribe, and if you have any ideas for what Warframe or weapon I should talk about next, feel free to leave any suggestions in the comments below. This has been Warframe Science, Herb to Derp out.
You like jazz?